Hello and welcome back to live coverage of the Apex Gaming $20,000 Modern Invitational, sponsored by TCGplayer.com. I'm Todd Tandy Anderson, joined by Ross Merriam in the booth. Say hi, Ross.
Hi, Ross.
We got 5 rounds down, and we are entering into round number 6, which means we are about to start hand-picking our top 8 players.
Yeah, so here's the situation we have right now. We have two players at 5-0. That's Don DeLozier and Cody Hill. They intentionally drew. They are locked. So congratulations to them. We'll see them a little bit later. But for now, we got to fill out the rest of that top 8. Going into this round, we have 10 players at 4-1. So if that's 5 matches, presumably without any unintentional draws, it'll produce 5 winners that move to 5-1 next round. That means we have 7 players next round that'll be 5-1 or better.
Right.
6 of them will get paired against each other and intentionally draw in. One person at 5-1 is going to be the unlucky one who gets paired down. So if they win, 1x2 will sneak in. If they lose, 2x2s will sneak in. Maybe them. I don't know.
Yeah.
But for now, we got a bunch of 4-1 players playing to get to 5-1 and very likely will be able to draw in to the top 8. So this is a big round for them, and we're going to be starting with 2 big players. We've got Mason Clark playing the 5-color No Cascade Beans deck, going old school with Ren and 6, Prismatic Ending, and Spell Pierce. Playing against a really cool one. This is Neptune Shoe on Jeskai Control, but this is a Jeskai Control deck playing 4 main deck copies of Narset Parter Avails and 2 main deck copies of Days Undoing. If he can unleash that combo on Mason, it could be a tough round.
Yeah, so we watched Mason a couple times today. Once against one of his students, Robin Gonzalez, was actually defeated against that Rakdos scam deck. Now, he's got his work cut out for him. This Jeskai control deck on paper looks quite bad. Narset Parter of Veils is excellent against a lot of the card advantage effects from the Beanstalk deck, and those Days Undoings can be devastating in the right spots. His deck doesn't have a whole lot of ways to answer Planeswalkers directly, just a few copies of Prismatic Ending. Does have Fury, so might want to burn that quickly, but a 1-2 punch might be
4
dirty.
copies of Leyline Binding, too. So
Okay, has answers. Never mind. Easy matchup for Mason Esports Clark. Let's head on down to the feature match area and watch him decimate Neptune Shoe. Is that what you wanted? I'm trying to
Just
create
saying.
tension here, Ross.
saying, he's got some answers. The big issue is he doesn't have any counter spells. So stopping a Narset Days Undoing in 1 turn. If Neptune is patient with the Narset and doesn't expose it, maybe he can get the combo off all in one go.
All right. Well, players do look like they are just about ready to go. So we're giving the thumbs up, and we're going to be off to the races. We'll see who's on the play. Both players, Kahira, the Orphan Guard strategy. Neptune on the play, going to lead with Windswept Heath.
Yeah, a lot of evoke elementals from both sides here. Neptune's 8 creatures are 4 copies of Solitude and 4 of Subtlety.
Right, and then on Mason's side, we have Solitude and Fury.
He's got a couple others too, but not much on top of the evoke elementals.
Endurances, too.
Well, yeah, 1 endurance and 4 Omnath.
Yeah. All right, going back Neptune's way, we're going to cycle Lord and Revealed. Going to go get an island. Gets a Triumph to complete the trifecta. I believe that's a Zagoth.
Yeah, I imagine in a lot of these games we'll just see early fetching for triumphs, both players setting up their mana bases, trying to make sure that their leyline bindings are as cheap as possible. They all have a bunch of cheap removal, but with no cheap creatures, those kind of early trades are not going to happen in this particular matchup.
All right, an early Beanstalk here from Mason Clark. Going to shock with the breeding pool down to 17. Play Beanstalk and draw a card. That is exactly where you want to be. If you're a Mason fan, this is good news. We'll see if Neptune can counter here. I see a Teferi Time Raveler might come down. A Lightning Bolt doesn't look that appetizing. A very reactive deck is Neptune's Jeskai control deck, but a couple of 3-mana Planeswalkers and Narset and Teferi Time Raveler, which can throw kink in the works for Mason.
Yeah, and this Teferi is quite threatening. The issue for Neptune, though, is do you want to guarantee your value and just -3 without a target? Then it becomes vulnerable to something like a Fury or even a Fire. If you plus, it's now outside of Fury range, but can get hit by Leyline Binding as a 1-for-1 trade. Opts to bounce up the Beanstalk, so playing a bit of a tempo game.
All right, well, Mason here going to quickly fetch, and then we're going to play a 1-cost Leyline Binding, and then likely going to play the Beanstalk as well. No, doesn't have the black source here to have the fully undercosted version without a tapped Zagoth Triumph. And we're going to get that Teferi Time Raveler off the table, and we're going to go back Neptune's way.
Interesting that Mason decided to go for the immediate answer on the Teferi rather than replaying the up the beanstalk that turn and waiting to draw a card off of it. Perhaps playing around counter spells, but the one thing about Neptune's deck, even though it's a Jeskai control list, not really any counter spells. It's 4 copies of Reprieve and 2 Stern Scolding.
Yeah, I mean, this is the new age, right? Counterspells are pretty bad against up the beanstalk. If something like the One Ring resolves, things can cascade quickly. And so sitting back on counterspells makes your mana worse, like you have to play this very reactive game, whereas everyone just seems to be playing big draw engines themselves and the free spells with Solitude, Subtlety, Fury, etc.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if Mason's tactics in the matchup change as it goes along, and he learns more about what Neptune's deck is up to, because he's going into the match blind.
One thing I want to note, both players here are playing very quickly. They know the games are going to go quite long, and they don't want to get a draw here. A draw is not the end of the world. It will mean that both of them likely have a win and in next round, but a win here essentially locks them for top 8, and they definitely want to pick up the dub here, and they want to play as quickly as they can to make sure that that comes to fruition.
But do you know who is rooting for a draw in this match? Is all the other X1s that win, because
Yeah.
that'll mean none of them get paired down,
Right.
and they can just safely draw the next round, getting paired against a fellow 5-1.
Okay, here's the Fairy Time Raveler for Neptune. Let's see how Mason wants to approach. We can let her resolve. We don't have any targets for something like Leyline Binding, and I don't think we have counter spells, but we're going to have Teferi bounce the Beanstalk and draw a card. We're going to put a one counter on it. And now if Mason has something like a Teferi Time Raveler of his own, he can actually bounce that Leyline Binding, return it to hand, and put the Teferi back on the table, which will kill one of them, and then binding the Teferi that's left over.
Yeah, could be a neat little play there. Net himself a little bit of value, but only the one Teferi in Mason's list, so not one that is likely to be available anytime soon.
Would have expected quite a few more. That card is so strong against the Cascade strategies, and if you're not going to play a lot of counter spells yourself, you want to try to turn off your opponents, right?
Yep, but well, we'll have to talk to Mason later about exactly why he made that decision.
Look, he tests like crazy. He knows a lot about the game. So if he came to those conclusions that Teferi as a one of is what he wants, then it's probably right. But here is a Leyline Binding, and that's going to trigger Beanstalk and draw a card, and we're going to try to exile the Teferi. Mason, like you said, probably suspects Neptune has a bunch of actual counterspells in his deck, so he's playing very cautiously. If he knew that Neptune just had Reprieve and Spell Pierce, he would be playing a lot differently, I think.
And while Mason has generated a lot of card advantage in the early going here because of that up the beanstalk, one casting of Days Undoing can undo that, especially if there is a Narset on the battlefield. So Neptune not super worried about opposing card advantage because he has that powerful combo in his deck.
Are you saying Narset can Days undo it?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I would never do that.
Okay, that's fair.
Mason goes for a Spell Pierce on this Teferi, which Neptune can and does pay for, so must have big plans for this upcoming turn and wants Neptune to be tapped out so he doesn't face down any other counter magic.
Here's what I want to see. I want to see Neptune go bounce Leyline Binding, draw a card, get back a Teferi, keep the new fresh one. Bounce Leyline Binding, draw a card, get the new Teferi, keep the fresh one, draw another card, leave it at 1 loyalty. And I think that's the chain he's going to do, and it's going to look pretty awkward here because Mason will have the answer, but okay, so we're just going to bounce one of the Leyline Binding instead of both. That's fair. And then we bounce the Beanstalk to just keep slowing Mason down. Both players here just, I don't know, keeping pace, but it seems like they're both treading water almost.
Yeah, interesting that Neptune has been so aggressive about bouncing up the Beanstalk with Teferi. He really does not care about the card advantage that Mason is gaining. He's just trying to delay Mason's game plan as much as possible, make sure he can set up that Narset combo. Because he does have the Gaia Reach Sanitarium already on the battlefield. If he gets to the point where he combos the Narset with the Zeta Undoing and has Sanitarium still up, he can completely lock out Mason Clark from drawing cards.
Yeah, this is a pretty awkward spot for Mason. His deck is very defensive in nature with Solitude, Fury, Prismatic Ending, and if Neptune is able to assemble Narset plus Days Undoing in one turn, Mason has very few ways to actually stop it from hand. All right, Mason draws for turn. No plays for Neptune. We're going to go back Mason's way and see what he can cobble together. Active up the Beanstalk's going to continue replacing the spells that he cast to draw cards. We're going to play another up the Beanstalk and draw. Here's a Reprieve. No. We're going to fetch first. Finds an island off the Flooded Strand. I love the Neon Dynasty basics. I love them. Here's a Reprieve. Do it again? No, says go. Doesn't decide to replay it. Going to hold up 5 mana. My guess is wanting to play Solitude on the end step. Just to get some pressure going.
Solid play.
Yeah, Gyru Sanitarium going to go looting for both players on the end step, and Neptune going to discard. No idea.
A foil.
Yeah, foil card that is blackened. Looks like it has been toasted over an open fire like a marshmallow.
Not to be confused with the Nemesis card foil.
All right, Emma. We got Emma in the booth over off to the side. Can you tell what that card is? Graveyard Neptune. All right, we have Lore and Reveal as the called.
There are 3 in Neptune's deck, so I think that's a pretty good call.
All right. Yeah, that looks like it. Okay. Wow. Impressive. I had no clue. We're going to draw a card here off the Solitude and get some pressure down, but no creatures to remove. Neptune, though, can play his own Solitude and eat the opposing one if he wants to.
Yeah, you have to imagine there is plenty of removal in Neptune's hand. There's so much on both sides in both decks and so few creatures for them to target.
But what's the game plan? What is the goal? How does Mason actually win the game? Seems difficult, honestly.
Yeah, the fact that his card advantage engine isn't really a big problem for Neptune is a problem for Mason.
Yeah, I think maybe the way to win. Does Mason have the Jace Wilder Mysteries tech? Is he doing that type of thing?
No, that's for the Cascade builds because they
Right.
get so many more copies of Beans. So that's one thing he's given up.
So I feel like no matter how far ahead Mason gets, if Neptune ever assembles the Narset Days Undoing, I don't know that Mason can really do much about it. You know, he's got a bunch of cards in hand, but it's all like Furies and Solitudes.
Yeah, in the main deck, it's just a couple Spell Pierces to stop that. You can Leyline Binding the Narset in response to the Days Undoing to at least ensure you can draw cards, but Mason's already used a couple Leyline Bindings.
All right, here's a loot. I believe that's another Lore and Reveal discarded. Here is Ren and 6. We're going to probably tick up and get a land back. But maybe we go minus into minus if we have a second Ren.
You also have to wonder if Neptune is okay with Mason drawing a bunch of cards. Maybe his plan in the matchup is to just deck it. To run you out.
Maybe. Although with the Days Undoing as something on the line. Yeah. Mason taps 3. Looks like we're going to play an Endurance. Kind of want to save that for the super late game, but he wants to get a little aggressive here.
Does Mason target himself? Yep, does target himself. Realizes that his deck size could easily matter in this matchup.
Yeah, and it is going to look like shuffle 2 more Beanstalks back into the deck. They do go on the bottom, but with plenty of fetch lands to put them somewhere closer to the top later on. Neptune's going to go back his way, draws for turn, see what he can cobble together.
Yeah. Be interested to see if he has removal spell for Endurance plus a burn spell to finish off the Ren after a Solitude attack. Because Ren and 6 is a threatening card.
Yeah, that is a good way for Mason to win. The ultimate on Ren and 6, that emblem allows for something like Fire Ice just to go to the face ad nauseum over and over. Taps 3. Narset, Parter of Veils. Do we have the Wombo combo to ruin Mason's life? We're going to minus. We're going to go looking. Top 4. Has the Leyline Binding for it.
Draw a card off up the Beanstalk.
Oh, yeah. We do get to draw the 1 card, but we got to be very careful about how we draw cards against Narset in general. Okay, top 4. Might find another Narset that we can play. And we have enough to play Narset plus Days Undoing.
Now, Mason could potentially have the second copy of Spell Pierce. Neptune would be tapped low enough for that Spell Pierce to work. Ooh, I see a Fire Ice among the 4 cards. If Neptune has another Solitude or a removal spell, could use that to finish off the Wrenn and 6 if he wants to.
Yeah, I like it. Looks like we go for a reprieve, playing for a future turn perhaps, or just grabbing some sort of defensive measure for next play.
Yeah, there is indeed a Solitude in Neptune's hand.
Okay, I do see another Narset peeking out there.
This Endurance, the one of in Mason's deck, but oddly effective here, being a little bit bigger than Solitude and Subtlety, which are the creatures that Neptune can deploy.
Okay, Narset, and in response, Mason says, I'm going to besage you on your Gaia Reach Sanitarium. This is with Narset on the stack. We're going to float a mana, and then that's going to let us go get something from the deck to put into play. We're going to get Island, and now, if we don't have Days Undoing, we can maybe find it with Narset. We got 2 in the deck. If we have Days Undoing in hand, which we do, Mason is about to get brutalized by this 1-2 punch.
Yeah, that might end this game.
It's important to note that he's already drawn a card this turn, so Days Undoing will draw 0 instead of the 1.
But doesn't have the Gaia Reach Sanitarium now for the full lock. Mason recognizing the, power or what Neptune's up to with that card and found the Besagi for it. Yeah, love using the Solitude. Just empty your hand before you play the Days Undoing.
No, 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 no. We're not going to get to attack it because we have a mana floating, and Days Undoing ends the turn.
Yeah.
So we're not going to be able to finish off the Wrenn, but we do get to use most of our stuff here. And now, Neptune using all that mana. Mason going to go ahead and Solitude your Solitude, gaining some life. And now, no draw from the Beanstalk, no draw from the Days Undoing. Neptune gets 7 and Mason gets 0. We do shuffle him into the deck, but Mason will draw none. This is so sick. This game has been going on for a while. Mason was actually almost ahead on resources, but then Neptune with this 1-2 punch, Narset Part of Veils into Days Undoing. Yeah. This wheel effect often happens in formats like Cube, Commander, and Vintage, but not so much in Legacy or in Modern. And now we're seeing it here, just absolutely devastate Mason's 4-color deck.
Mason goes to draw, then realizes, yeah, I've already done it. So okay. I get none. You get 7.
All right, we do get 1 draw. It's a Solitude. We can play it on Neptune's turn to draw a card and kill something, but looks like we're probably just going to buy and play Kahira.
Just get that out, plus our Wrenn. Don't have a target because Days Undoing shuffled all the lands back into our deck.
Yeah. Okay, Narset ticks down. Top 4 cards.
Yeah, and from here it should be academic for Neptune. Did we just whiff?
We did just whiff. It looked like 4 lands to me. But I think we're fine on cards. We actually even have Fire Ice to kill the Kahira or the Wrenn and 6. If I'm Mason, I might just concede.
I agree.
This is going to be... It was already... it felt kind of weird before the Days Undoing and after the Days Undoing. I can't imagine that it is remotely close.
And you still have a good amount of time. You could potentially win 2 games. He's got some counter spells to bring in out of the sideboard that should really help in the matchup.
Looks like Ryan Hayes is getting up from the table. His match might be concluded. Let's see if we can get his result once it's submitted on Melee.
Yeah, that was a Rakdos Evoke Mirror between him and Robin Gonzalez. So 2 very explosive decks.
All right, so Kahira for both players. Neptune with a Gripful. Mason has Solitude in hand as the draw for last turn. Gonna go ahead and cast it. Can't draw a card off of the Beanstalk because of the Narset.
That's a stern scolding from Neptune's shoe. Clean answer.
All right, now Prismatic Ending on the Narset Parter of Veils. That's likely going to do it since we know Neptune has very few actual counterspells for it.
Okay. That does potentially unlock some sequences of draws with Up the Beanstalk to start getting Mason back into the game.
All right, Fire going to take out Kahira. And now Rin takes up 2-3. The Kira on Neptune's side can smush it. And Mason has no cards versus Neptune's grip of 6.
I see a Subtlety in hand for Neptune, so that'll increase the clock here. I think a Leyline Binding. Yeah, he's got some goods. I think we could see a Leyline Binding on the Up the Beanstalk to prevent some card draw chains from Mason.
Yeah, no more Narset in play, so potential to get out of it. We're going to start with a Binding ourselves when we're going to draw a card. See if Neptune has anything to fight back.
Well, you got to let him draw the card first.
Do you?
Oh, no. Yeah, we're going to... Nice.
Respond to the Beanstalk trigger. We're going to Binding your Binding on Narset, and you no longer draw a card. And now, Narset prevents it because we did draw for turn, and now
Yeah.
Binding comes in, and this can target... That's... I'm pretty sure that's not how that's supposed to work, because this is not on our upkeep.
Yeah, I don't know why Mason draws a card there.
Let's get our director to go check in with him, because that seems like that card should not have been drawn the way that happened.
Is this the upkeep?
Ah, so Mason actually passed to Neptune's upkeep. Sorry, we didn't actually get to hear the conversation between the two of them. So we did get that confirmation. We appreciate the players talking to us there.
Could have been a cool play, but instead it wasn't.
Okay. Neptune has grip full. Let's see what he can do. This is still game number 1. A massive advantage for Neptune thanks to the Narset Days Undoing from a few turns ago. Mason, still with Up the Beanstalk in play, finds another one. Might be able to come back here now that these are drawing more cards. And here we have another Leyline Binding on Leyline Binding to get Narset back and shut off the draw effect.
Neptune knows what his deck's about.
Yeah, it's about Narset. Harder Veils. And here's an Omnath, another no draw.
No draw. This might not even resolve since there are several subtleties in Neptune's hand.
Yep. Oh, he just says that's fine.
Declines.
Probably has some sort of spot removal spell that kills it. You know, I don't want to say that this is what Neptune is doing. I don't think it's shady in the slightest. But Neptune has very little incentive to finish this game anytime soon. It takes Mason's deck an extremely long amount of time to win games, and if Neptune is able to essentially just control every play that Mason makes for the next 10-15 minutes, he's able to potentially win this match 101.
Yeah, I think the 101 would be a lot more likely if we were about 10 minutes later into the round, but with 30 minutes left, there is plenty of time for Mason to win a post-sideboard game, and you don't want to dilly-dally in game 1 and then accidentally leave yourself with very little time to try to win a game 3.
All right, well, it looks like Neptune is tapping 4 different colors of mana here, looking for Prismatic Ending on the Omnath. And then we're attacking with Kahira. So we're charging towards victory. We're not sandbagging too bad. We are just playing the game. Subtlety here can protect from something more devastating like Solitude. That might be what he's holding it for.
Second Beseiju here blows up Neptune's Leyline Binding on Mason's Leyline Binding, and that will answer the Narset.
Okay.
And looks like Neptune has 6 mana up, so can play 1 Subtlety here, but that's only a 7-point attack. Subtlety, of course, getting pumped by the Kahira.
Okay, gonna go back Neptune's way. Mason empty-handed. Another attack for Kahira is gonna put him down to 6.
We had the Fire Ice. This could have been lethal, but you know how control players are.
Could have been lethal. I got 8 cards in hand. Let's keep playing.
That's a Solitude, but the Subtlety will stop that.
All right, there is no Narset in play, so we will trigger Beanstalks. Mason might be on the comeback train here. We're going to Subtlety on the Solitude, put that back on top of the deck. Yeah. Mason packs it in. GG.
Normally, you would also Subtlety before the Up the Beanstalk triggers in case Mason can draw some sort of counterplay. But in that case, you don't want Mason to redraw it and draw a white card to be able to evoke.
Okay, so game number 1 goes to Neptune Shu. As these players look at their sideboards for a little bit of help in the match. If I have my main man Ross look at their sideboards and give his expert analysis, Mason, Eastwards, Clark playing that 4-color Beanstalk deck, how can he approach his Jeskai control matchup?
Yeah, so we know both players have a Kahira companion. The other 14 cards for Mason are 2 copies of Subtlety, 2 Force of Vigor, 2 Force of Negation, 2 Flusterstorm, 2 Chalice of the Void, 1 Engineered Explosives, and 3 Leyline of Sanctity. It's a control mirror. I like the blue cards. Subtlety, Force of Negation, and Flusterstorm all should be coming in here. All should be quite good. Get some of this dead removal or semi-dead removal out, and be able to interact with the critical spells out of the Jeskai control deck.
Yeah, Flusterstorm is a tough one because a lot of the non-creature spells from Shu are like Planeswalkers, Leyline Binding. So the things that you're going to be looking to hit are more along the lines of just like Days Undoing or opposing counter spells, maybe Force Negations out of the sideboard or something like that. So
That is true, and unfortunately for Mason, the counterspell of choice for the sideboard in Neptune Shu's deck is Dovin's Veto, not one that Flusterstorm can counter. So two Dovin's Veto, 2 Blossoming Calm, 2 Spell Pierce, 2 Stern Scolding, 2 Chalice of the Void, 2 Temporary Lockdown, and 2 Dress Down in the Jeskai sideboard. I like the Vetoes, I like the Spell Pierces, and I like the Dress Downs against all of those Evoke Elementals and Omnaths from Mason's deck. So once again, I like the blue cards.
All right, as these players are finishing sideboarding and shuffling for game number 2, I'd like to take this time to thank our sponsors for this weekend's event. The Apex Invitational is sponsored by Ultimate Guard. Ultimate Guard products for the TCG space include Katana sleeves, top of the market, as well as the Archive deck box, a very large way to keep your cubes and extra commander decks safe in rain, sleet, snow, or hail. Make sure to check out Ultimate Guard products at your local game store. And if they don't have them, ask them why. I want to buy them.
Why?
Why? Next up, Moxfield.com. Thank you so much to their new deck building website. We're able to produce deck lists for you guys to see. We'll be using Moxfield generated deck lists on all of our YouTube videos from here on out. Thank you so much to them for sponsoring today's event. And check out Moxfield.com to share your deck lists and archive your own deck lists with your friends on social media. Wings Etc. Grill and Pub, thank you so much for sponsoring the event. We ate there Friday night and had a great time, and I expect we'll be there tonight having another blast. The vibes in the room have been immaculate all weekend, and the people around are some of my favorite people on earth. And when I get to go hang out with them in a fun setting like Wings Etc., it's always a very fun time.
I'm looking forward to it, but we got some business to take care of first.
Yeah. Last but not least, our flagship sponsor, TCGplayer.com. We couldn't have done it without you this time around. Thank you so much. Make sure to check out TCGplayer.com and their marketplace for any of your singles needs and your TCGs, from Pokemon to Yu-Gi-Oh! To Disney's Lorcana and Magic the Gathering. TCGplayer.com is your one-stop shop for all your singles needs. Also, make sure to check out their sealed product. You can get some discounts on that. Their sister site, TCG Player Infinite, posts strategy content from big names in the Magic space like Frank Carson, Reed Duke, and our own Emma Partlow. Thank you so much for them for writing those. And also check out CFB Pro. They're affiliated with TCG Player, and they post tons of awesome articles on Magic the Gathering over on their website.
Updates from the room. I can tell you that Ryan Hayes was victorious in that Rakdos scam mirror match over Robin Gonzalez, 2-0. So Ryan moves to 5-1, looking to draw next round into our top 8. Robin, unfortunately, falling to 4-2, but still alive. There's definitely a chance for 1 or 2 X2s to sneak in with a relatively small invite-only field like this one.
All right, players are drawing their opening 7s for game number 2. Mason going to be on the play. Let's see if he wants to keep his opener. Both players do, and we're underway. Game number 2. Neptune Shu up. Both players leading with just land. Fetching and go. Zagatron for Mason. That's going to make Leyline Binding significantly cheaper over the course of the game.
Definitely a good one to start on. Once again, both players just using the early turns to set up their mana bases. Mason, no good turn 2 player.
Yeah.
Renner and up the Beanstalk would have been nice to see there.
Yeah, for sure. And without either of those plays, his deck is going to be probably a little light on cards going long. Those draw engines early allow him to not only hit his land drops, but also to just keep the gas flowing when he's doing those big pitch elementals like Solitude and Fury. But as we know, this is not what this matchup is about. Neptune very rarely puts creatures onto the battlefield except when he is in a commanding position. And because of that, a lot of Mason's defensive measures are relatively neutered.
Yeah, Neptune is effectively operating as a combo control deck.
Right.
You know, he just wants to do what he can to contain Mason's pressure
Is this a Splinter Twin situation?
and eventually set up that powerful combination of Narset, Days Undoing into uh, Narset into Days Undoing. So, unfortunately for Mason, you know, the way you stop these combo control decks is by putting them under quite a bit of pressure, and he just doesn't really have the ability to do that with his particular list.
Well, here is some pressure. This is Teferi, Time Raveler, the singleton in his main deck. And Neptune going to quickly fetch and shock, which to me means we're going to play a counterspell. Whether it's Reprieve or Veto, we'll have to wait and see. There it is. Dovin's Veto going to take it down. Mason's trump card is now beaten.
We might see it again if it gets shuffled back in with Days Undoing.
That's true. That's true. Now, Neptune can play Teferi, Time Raveler of zone, draw a card, or just leave it be, taking it up to 5 to protect it from Fury. I kind of like drawing a card. It's like if you Fury, it's like 3 for 1, and I don't really have that many instants in my deck that really matter.
Yeah, looks like we went to plus and then thought better of it. Mason does have a Fury in hand, but it's just so hard to plus and then get got by Leyline Binding.
Right. Okay, so here is Prismatic Ending on the Teferi. So good thing that we did take down for the extra card, and Mason is getting beaten in the resource game. We'll see if Neptune can capitalize. Something like Narset or another Teferi Time Raveler could be really bad news for Mason.
There is another Teferi here. Mason has Subtlety and Force of Negation, so could pitch counter it, but then he'd be down another card.
Yeah, we did pick up that force this last draw step, so while this is a painful 2 for 1, it does prevent the card draw from the Teferi, and if we don't force negation this, we're not really forcing negation much of anything, huh?
Does force pitching the Subtlety and losing one of his key threats to try to clock Neptune. He needs to be able to apply pressure.
But here's a big peel. Here is Expressive Iteration. We're going to look at the top 3. We get 1 to hand, 1 to exile that we can play this turn. We're going to find Island and Solitude. We're going to play the Island and fetch. This looks like a Kahira buy. Maybe playing Endurance from hand.
Yeah, I believe we put Beseiju in hand and the Solitude one on the bottom. You can see the Solitude at the bottom of the deck now. So takes the Beseiju, which is a very powerful answer to opposing Leyline Bindings.
And very good if he's able to pick up a Renin 6 anytime soon.
Okay, this fetch does not get a second green source, so it's not going to be Endurance for Mason. Yeah, just buys the Kahira. Ooh, are we checking? This was a Misty Rainforest. We can get Steam Vents.
All right, gonna go back Neptune's way in just a moment. Looks like we picked up Lightning Bolt for the turn. Neptune with a pretty wide array of different effects in hand, but most of them are very defensive. I'm curious if he has a Narset or something similar here. And he does. Narset Parter of Veils comes down. This is very bad news for Mason. We don't have the ability to play land number 6. This is only turn 5, so we can't Daze Undoing this turn. But we do have Fire Ice. Maybe tap down Mason and stall him out a little bit and draw another card.
Yeah, maybe let Mason tap out for something and then ice on the end step, but if he wants to stop a Fury, he's going to need to ice aggressively.
Narset finding Narset is extremely demoralizing if you're having to like kill it with Fury or whatever, right? Because it's just like, oh, it's going to come down again next turn, even if they do kill it.
Okay, do we have a Reprieve here?
Well, it's not in the graveyard yet. I know that we do have a Lightning Bolt for the Fury.
One card that is interesting for later in this game is that Hall of Storm Giants on Neptune's battlefield. As the game goes long, that is going to be a major threat, and it's not something that Mason has a good answer to.
Okay, here's another Narset. Does Mason draw the counterspell for it? No, we're going to minus. Top 4. Narset, Bowmaster. Oh, no. Land number 6. Land number 6. No.
Ooh.
Past turns. Mason dodged a bullet.
Untaps very quickly. He's like, yes, let's go to my turn. My turn. My turn.
Are you saying I can dodge bullets? When the time comes, you won't have to. Here's Kahira, the Orphan Guard. We can also play an Endurance, but here is Fire Ice to take it down. Fire going to zap it. And now we're going to go land. Minus maybe looking for Counterspell. Here's Endurance in response. I think this is fine. I think you just let it resolve. You have 1 mana Leyline Binding. He also has Subtlety, so we can put it on top. And if we're casting Days Undoing, right, you might as well just burn your whole hand.
Yeah, probably just minusing the Narset first with Days Undoing so that we can potentially find a counterspell if Mason had one.
A Dovin's Veto to stop an opposing force negation #2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, see, could go for a Teferi here. Mason only on one card.
Depends on if he has a land #6 or not. This has there it is. Okay, so Teferi Time Raveler plus Days Undoing. This is bad news. Oh, we can plus Days Undoing on Mason's turn. I think Days Undoing says it only ends the turn if it's your turn.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I got really excited for a second that we were about to see discontinuity plus draw 7.
So this effectively... Oh, no. It would have been still better to do it on the upkeep because Mason hasn't drawn a card yet this turn. So now he's going to draw a card off the Days Undoing and then draw one for turn. If you had cast it on Mason's upkeep, he draws one for the Days Undoing, then Narset stops him from drawing for his own turn. And
I
there's
agree.
no counterplay available for Mason because of the Teferi. So small misstep from Neptune, going to effectively give Mason one extra card, but he is still very ahead in this game. And Mason's only at 13. That's 2 attacks with Hall.
Okay, Mason's draw.
Oh, maybe Mason had already drawn something for that
Well,
turn.
maybe he said, I'll do this during your upkeep, so Mason did not draw.
Sure. Oh, no. Yeah.
Nope.
No.
Okay, so we're
Did
fixing
cast it on his own turn. So
Finds
Oh,
Ren
wow.
6. This is great for popping the Narset. Neptune should be tapped out. This is still Mason's turn.
Yeah.
And now we're going to minus probably to kill Narset, but still in a world of hurt.
yeah, the damage has been done, and the Ren and 6 isn't threatening because now there's no graveyard after the Days Undoing.
All right, Neptune fans his lands out. We still see that Hall of the Storm Giants that can come across here for 7 if he wants. That is best case scenario, right? The onboard attack for 7. Worst case scenario is something else, which
Yeah.
likely means that you're not playing Magic ever again.
We'll see. Neptune played very conservatively to close last game. I expect he will continue to do the same.
All right, draws a card off the Teferi, no bounce. Gonna go bolting on your Ren 6. Mason draws for turn, has that Dead Spell Pierce in hand, finds nothing, says go. Gonna cycle Raglan Triumph and draw. Looking for a way to physically close the game. We're very far ahead on resources.
Let's draw more
We're
cards.
even gonna ice you.
And I think this match is over.
I do too. I think Neptune is going to be punching his ticket into the top 8 of our Invitational, going 5-1 with 7 rounds. This is a light 7 rounds, which means that at 5-1, you're very likely to be able to draw in the last one. It doesn't mean it's locked up guaranteed. It just means it's very likely. Neptune here, count out his mana, taking the Teferi up.
And Mason will not be 100% out. Even with a loss here, there is the possibility for one or two X2s to sneak in.
All right, Mason does pick up Omnath, Locus of Creation, with no Narset in play. This means it can draw a card, and he has at least one fetch land in play. Decides not to cast it. Interesting. Okay. Draw Solitude. Wonder if this changes his play. Maybe he knows that Subtlety's coming. And if he plays the... You know, that's sick. That's such a sick no-cast last turn. I don't think more than a handful of people in the whole world would hold that Omnath last turn like he just did. I don't know if it's right. But he knows at the moment he casts it, it's getting hit with a Subtlety. And he's going to get attacked for 3 a bunch.
That he is. There's another Narset for Neptune. Has Subtlety in hand too. I think we can close out this game next turn. Attack him down to 10 with that Subtlety, and then fire up the Hall after answering whatever Mason does.
Why don't we just attack with the Hall this turn, hit him for 10?
That's against the control player's code.
That's fair. Here's a Narset. We're going to get a little sloppy with it. -2. Going to look at the top. Finds Leyline Binding. That's going to remove a potential blocker later on. Attack for 3. All right, Neptune. You're getting ahead of yourself. Put 3 dice, or 3 counters on that Narset, please. Thank you, thank you. Here's Omnath. Do we have another subtlety? We do. Mason can't respond because of the Teferi Time Raveler. Didn't have it last turn. And now it looks like our day is done. Or the deed is done, rather.
Yeah.
Okay.
Multiple reprieves in hand. Mason's just like, just show me that you have something so we can move on with our lives.
Okay, Neptune Jew moves to 5-1 in our 7-rounder with Jeskai Control beating Mason Clark's Beanstalk deck.